I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
I'm Neil.
Neil!
It is Neil's birthday today.
Today, losers.
Well, technically, we didn't record it on his birthday. We released it on his birthday.
Right. Do you like being celebrated, Neil, or?
I don't mind a few like strokings of my ego every now and then.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Neil. You're 31 years old. It's almost over for your life. You better become a Christian. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
And as a birthday, you're still on Patreon, right?
Yep.
So our patrons did another good thing. February is a month of good things.
Yep.
Trisomy 18 is a pretty terrible disease, and it really, takes the lives of a lot of young kids. And this family, this is little Jason, and this family has set up a GoFundMe account. They need some help because they got some pretty exorbitant medical fees trying to keep this little guy alive. So our patrons just delivered a donation to them.
Yep.
So it's pretty cool. Neil's birthday, doing good stuff in the world. That's what we about.
Yep.
Okay. So go check them out. Link will be in the description. Inshallah.
And we also posted it on Facebook.
I already posted on Facebook. Yep. Inshallah, the link will actually be in the description. Okay. What's the name of this band, Neil?
So the name of this band is Woods of Ypres.
Yep.
So E as in email, pray as in pray.
What happened?
The name of the song is not Finality.
No, it is not.
Vin has.
That's a good song, though. It's a good song.
I have the wrong song up. What's the name of the song?
Right here,
Adora Vivos. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so how would you describe this band? Are they black metal, death metal? What type of metal are these guys?
So for the song that we're doing is around the time, like it's their last album. Around this time, they were mixing black metal, doom metal, and gothic metal. So there's some areas that sort of remind me of like Typo Negative at times. And then there's also like the harsh elements that you get in black metal. And then there's a lot of slower paced songs near the end of this record. So a lot of mix of doom and black metal, I'd say mainly. And then earlier on they were a bit more closer to black metal.
Okay.
I'm pretty much mainly familiar with just this album. There are a few other villagers in the village that are more familiar with like their extent of their catalog. So.
Okay. All right. So let's check this out. Woods of Ypres.
Is that what? Yeah.
And
good pronunciation.
This one is called Adora Vivos.
What did you guys think that meant?
Well, Adora sounds like Adora, and Vivos, Vim, it's life.
Oh.
So love life, I guess.
Yeah, that's my interpretation of it.
All right. Well,
that's Latin. How could you not know?
Yeah. I mean, how could I not know?
Let's begin.
Go.
silence, but not one moment more. The dead are to be forgotten. We are here to be to be adored. Look me in the face and don't believe a word I say. This life is hard, this life is lonely, and we are here for one night only. See the pain in my eyes, the defeat of my age. Feel the urgency of time, and don't wait till death to sing my praise. A moment of silence for the dead, but not one moment more. A dead or to be forgotten, we are here to be adored. If you're waiting for tomorrow, save yourself for another day. But if you're living in the moment, don't wait till death to sing my praise. Adora Vivos, our people are civilized. Love the living while they're still alive. Adora Vivos, our people are civilized. We shouldn't worship the dead.
Yeah, I like that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sonically, that you hit the nail on the head with everything. Like,
His explanation?
yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
saw the typo,
Yeah.
the typo influence. I definitely saw the electronica, especially at the beginning. And then they still had some harsh. Wow, that's a good. Have we done them yet? Is this the first time?
This is the first time. They are sort of like low-key suggested across the
They're like on that
comments.
second tier of requests.
Yeah.
This is definitely a Christian react to.
Yeah. Yeah. This is good though. I like this. I like some of, a lot of the things that he was saying too. I like the sound of his voice. I like the guitar work in the background.
Yeah.
Do you catch all the subtle like strings that were there too?
Yeah.
He probably
Well,
did.
I thought that those were synths. I mean, do they have actual instruments in the band? Like
They actually brought in a cello and an oboe for that record.
cellist and all that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love when metal does that.
Yeah.
Who's that band that did Funerary Dirge of a Violinist? Was that
I don't know who it
was.
Septic Flesh.
Septic Flesh.
Oh, that was Septic Flesh? The violinist one?
Wasn't that Karak on Grand? Anyway.
No, I don't think that was Septic
Anytime
Flesh.
metal shows.
Oh, yeah, that was Karak on Grand. Yeah.
Ah! Who's the real metal
Yeah.
dictionary here, losers?
Nailed it.
Okay. So yeah, sonically, this was a great song.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
Enough variation, and toward the end, there was this one little section where they were, doing the stop-start stuff with the with the rip, and I was like, "Yo, do you hear that? Because you're getting lost in it, but you can miss some of the musicianship."
Oh yeah, I was totally missing the musicianship because
the lyrics are so crazy.
Lyrics are so good, and like I said, I like the way the guy was singing. I do think that some female vocals in there would really bring it to another place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put it on what do you
I'll
call
sing
it?
with
GarageBand, and then you can corrupt it.
Corrupting is so mean to me.
So is this one of your favorite songs?
This is probably my favorite song on this album.
How often do you listen to it?
When I first got the album, I was listening to this album nonstop, pretty much.
Yeah.
A lot of what I was thinking about talking about was sort of like surrounding when I got this album, sort of what was happening at the time for the band. Since basically the story behind this album and this band is this is their last album because their singer and their main songwriter, the founder of the band, David Gold, between the album being written and the album being released, he died. So he was killed in a... Yes. So he's like the multi-instrumentalist. So on the record, he basically did pretty much all of it. He had in the recording, he had another person with him to do like lead guitar and some extra guitar work, and then the cello and the oboist were also with him on the recording. But pretty much everything else, all the lyrics are written by him. All like the structuring of the songs are written by him. So he died in a car collision
Jeez.
between when this album was released and when he finished writing it. So I was able to so the CD release party in Toronto was also a memorial for his life, and then they also had another memorial where his family lives further up north in Canada.
That's
so
too bad.
Yeah.
That's too bad. It's so weird too, because when I was listening to it, I'm like, well, the good news is, I mean, the sad news is the Type O guy is not around, but the good news is this guy is.
I hate that. It's so many people.
There's just
when we start discovering this music, and then
it's ridiculous.
Fall in love with Freddie Mercury, he's gone.
Yep.
And my guy Dime, he's gone. And then, these are some pretty freaking provocative lyrics, which are now extremely ironic considering the big homie.
Death is a very prevalent theme on this record. If you look through the track list, it's a very prevalent theme, and I think it's a very prevalent theme just for the band in general. So given the situation of his death, it kind of gives this album a bit of an eerie vibe when you think about it.
That's spooky as hell. That's spooky as hell, bro. That was we had that combo with Hendrix where but apparently, to your point, there is a conspiracy theory that he committed suicide.
You're kidding me.
There's also another conspiracy theory that Hendrix was murdered, blah, blah, blah. But like, you're right. Like, I'm looking at the track listing now. Career Suicide is not real suicide. Song 9, Kiss My Ashes, Goodbye. Song 10 is Finality. And then song 11 is Alternate Ending.
Wow.
So the really eerie one is Alternate Ending, I find, because it's even talking about driving on a highway and stuff like that. So it's like there's even like car references in that one.
Yep. Back on the highway under the moon. My final moments, still wondering about you. Ooh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing he said was, when the end couldn't come slow enough for me.
Holding on.
Yeah, so so it's very, very, very ironic and spooky and makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I take it, big homie, that you're an atheist.
That's probably what I lean towards. I'm a perpetual like fence sitter when it comes to a lot of things that I think about.
Perpetual fence sitter. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So is this kind of encapsulate your life philosophy almost?
I appreciate a lot of what he says in this song in particular, just because what I get out of it is that it's about trying to show some appreciation for those who are still here. Because like, I get I feel like the main part of what this song is talking about is sort of like how we sort of, when it's not until someone passes that you sort of elevate and highlight like, oh, this is what this person did, and like shine the spotlight on them. This is sort of like a call to say, hey, we're here now. Let's try to shine this spotlight on us while we're still around, so that we're present to know, sing my praise while I'm still here, as like the song sort of says.
Yeah.
They're Old Testament Psalms where David says, who can praise you from the grave? Because David didn't, it was apparent, at least in that psalm, that he didn't have a strong understanding of an afterlife. So he's saying, look, if I'm dead, I can't worship you. So he's basically like,
hey,
negotiate, hey, you gotta keep me alive, because if I'm dead, I won't be able to praise you. But it's usually, as a Christian, and I've done this millions of times. You've seen it on the fireside where you say, okay, well, if there's no God, then what's the point of living? or the concept of nihilism, right? Which is everything is empty because there's no God. I think this is a good contrary argument. Namely, look, if I only have one life, and if I can't rely on an afterlife, then this life would be way more valuable to me because this is the only shot that I have, right? So it's gonna be a life is more important if you believe that this is your only shot, which that's true because I don't believe it's my only shot, and so there have been situations where
and we believe it's going to get better than this,
right? And there's been situations where I'm like, I'm probably gonna die, and like you make certain decisions in those situations if you think that you're gonna have an afterlife, and then I would have probably made different decisions if I didn't think that. Yeah. So I'm being intentionally vague, but it's just a very interesting thought process. I'm trying. So what resonates most with you about this song?
Pretty much the line that I sort of mentioned, love me in the flesh, don't wait till death to sing my praise. That's sort of like the big focal line that I've always sort of been drawn to when I'm listening to the song. Some of the other stuff with like worshiping the gods, men are immortal gods, that's sort of window dressing to, I guess, probably David's more personal beliefs, but I feel like the overall gist of the song is sort of what I kind of explained earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
this guy's name is David too? The singer?
The singer is David. Yeah, that's David
so
Gold.
Because you were talking about David in the Bible.
I was talking about David in the Bible. I wasn't talking about this David. Did you think I was talking about this David or David from the Bible?
This David.
No, he's talking about David.
There's a guy in the Bible named David.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
And he was basically trying to bargain with God and say, hey, you can't kill me because if I die, nobody's going to worship you in the grave.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So it seems like what he's saying in the court, at least in the bridge, Adora Vivos, our people are civilized, loving the living while they're still alive.
Yeah.
Is kind of like, okay, back in the day in the primitive ages, you had this whole afterlife, blah, blah, blah. But now we're modernized and we're civilized, so we can get away from that fairy tale stuff and just focus on the people who are actually in front of us. I mean, is that pretty much the idea you got from that lyric?
Yeah, that's the main thing I got from that, is basically we're at the point now where we can sort of get past the superstitious beliefs that religion has.
Were you nervous to say that?
I was thinking, should I preface this that that's what the song is saying and not necessarily what I'm saying, or am I supposed to be? Do I think that way? And then I question, do I think that way?
Well, people
like I said, fence sitter. So I'm like, I'm probably lean more towards this side than the other side. Like I did grow up on some religion, but it wasn't a very prevalent aspect of my life when I was growing up.
Yeah. I mean, if I was an atheist, I'd be like, yeah, this is all superstitious, bully baloo.
Yeah, that's not what I thought of when I heard that line. I was thinking like you'll see like these like I don't know, like National Geographic-y sort of things or whatever, where the people are like, when somebody dies, they're like cutting themselves and there's all this focus on the death so I thought of that coupled with when a parent will lose one child and there's another one that's still alive and like they like obsess about the one that died, and then the living one never gets the attention and the love that they should, because there's so much like love and attention that's going toward the one that's dead that it's never really balanced. So like loving the living, they're still walking on the earth, like stuff like that, because I've seen it. I watched a mother talk more about her dead baby than she did talk about her living children. And I think that
well,
yeah, when it comes to grief, it's a hard thing to like say how much time should be given towards it, like because other people are going to have different responses to grief in their own different ways. So it's definitely a hard thing to say, oh, you should only grieve for so long and then try to get back to being present in the moment, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, that passage where it talks about don't tattoo yourself in Leviticus,
Right.
The full context is you shall not make cuts for the dead, nor shall you tattoo yourselves. And that was the context was in the A&E, that was part of the ritual. Your ancestors die, you cut yourself and things like that to commemorate them and express your grief.
Yeah.
And so, but what that did was it left a permanent, imprinting of the dead person on you, and you were focused on death.
Yeah.
And so that law was there for that particular reason, because there was a form of ancestor worship in the A&E. So when he says, we shouldn't worship the dead, that's really interesting, because from a modern perspective, it's almost hyperbolic. It's like modern people don't systematically worship the dead, but ancient Near Eastern people did that all the time. So like there's that theme of like we're civilized, we're not like these old, whatever, and our preoccupation with almost like making people saints after they die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like hero worship kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it's like guy was a jerk. He hated everybody, never did a nice thing for a person. And then it's like, well, Jim always had the best suits. Like, they're going to find something.
No, they'll lie. I went to a funeral where they were straight lying. They're like, he was a devout Catholic. I'm like, did this guy, I never even saw him go to church. Like, he donated, like, he was a miser. He didn't donate any money to anybody. Like, I was like looking at my parents. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
Well, how do you know he didn't donate? How do you know? How can you possibly know that? You know. How do you know?
I can't get into the details publicly, but I do know.
You don't know.
Okay, well.
That's impossible.
It's not impossible.
To know.
It's not impossible.
So you were in the guy's bank account.
Yeah, basically.
No, you weren't.
I wasn't.
Who was this person?
But I'm not telling it publicly, babe. What is wrong with you?
The guy could have been the most generous person of all time. Maybe he was just super humble and didn't want anybody to know.
Because somebody was helping him with his finances.
Well,
babe.
Hey, human error. And there's lots of human error on your side with tracking stuff.
You're terrible.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Shots fired.
I'm just saying, it's not a strong suit of your family.
Anyway.
You guys are good at building houses and, pressing people and stuff, but tracking stuff.
What is wrong with you? Neil, save me from this situation.
I love you. I'm just saying. All right. So obviously I don't agree with the whole, the way that he talks about God, right? We're realer than any God was. But at the same time, it's like, well, if I had, I'm jumping into his body now. If I was an atheist and I had that worldview, I'd say, well, yeah, why are you talking about all this invisible stuff?
Oh, yeah.
And you got a person right in front of you. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So, which of course, there's a species of that in the Bible, right? Where John says you can't love God who you have not seen.
Yeah.
If you don't love your brother who you do see.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So religious people do this all the time. They say all the invisible stuff that you can't see. They'll say, oh yeah, that. But then the physical human beings that are in front of them, they treat them like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I feel like that whole we're realer than any gods, like obviously I don't agree with that, but I do think that there's a sense in which you could say, if you believe that people are created in the image and likeness of God and you mistreat other people, or you don't let people know that you appreciate them, then how can you say that you really worship God or love God or whatever? Because those people bear his image.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to treat people like garbage or not let them know that you love them if you say you love God? So I thought this song was like an incredibly introspective song.
Yeah.
I think he was using hyperbole throughout the song to some degree to drive home his point. I'm not sure if he believes that literally. Like, for example, when he says the dead are to be forgotten.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not particularly certain that he believed that literally. What's your take, Neil?
Well, he does touch on that a few different times across the album. Like Kiss My Ashes Goodbye is another song that sort of touches on that aspect a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also elsewhere, there are slight areas where he's a bit more questioning in terms of how he feels on that. Like, I feel like there's some of that in Finality. There's a little bit of that in Traveling Alone. So I'd say hyperbole would be probably a fair thing to say, to be a bit hyperbolic about it.
Well, of course, the irony is he died, and here we are talking about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that's kind of funny about it.
Right? It's like,
particularly with this song, yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of like,
I think when he's saying the whole, like, we're more real than God ever was, like, I kind of think that might have to do with, like, because if you don't believe that God exists, and like you're saying, like, nobody like sees God. Like, it's not like you're like, yeah, God was knocking on my door and came for lunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there are people that are physically here with us. And so, you could see how if somebody doesn't believe in God, then it's just like this thought. It's not really something that's even there. And like, we're more real than that. And like, if you need help and you ask somebody for help, they're either going to like, no, not help you, or they're going to like do something to actively help you. But like with God, you know, people can pray and ask God for help. And sometimes it's just quiet, you know, sometimes you get some whatever response and sometimes you don't. So like,
it's just, when I listen to those lyrics, I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but there have been very, very significant moments in my life where God was, and some of those moments I wasn't even looking for him or praying or anything, where God was just realer to me than being next to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
like we've had
but not everybody has those experiences.
So I've dealt with so many questions and blah, and read so many books about Christian blah, defense of the faith, but that's something I'll never figure out. Like why some people have these experiences with, you know, God or whatever, and then other people are going for it, and they, for whatever reason, they never have those types of experiences, because there's nothing that anybody can tell me because of those experiences. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So, right. But it's a very strange thing to me, where it's like, have you ever thought about that? Like when you're on your fence hanging out in Switzerland?
Yeah.
You refuse to decide.
Yeah, I'm pretty swished feeling over here. Yeah, it's a weird thing, because to be honest, it's not something I haven't really made the attempt to do something like that before. We're reaching out to God for something like that. Uh-huh. So and from what I understand, there's times where, like you said, where you're not even looking for him, and then he reaches you.
Yeah. And
there's more than one account of people saying something like that, right? So like I've had hardships in my life, and where I could have maybe turned to something like that, but I haven't. And maybe thinking about being in that hardship, maybe something would reach out to me, but I personally haven't felt anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's weird.
No,
it's weird to me. There's one line that he said where he said, "Oh yeah. Look me in the face and don't believe a word I say. This life is hard. This life is lonely, and we are here for one night only."
Yes.
It's a good line.
I looked at you at that part.
Yeah.
I was like, that's good.
Yeah. Earlier in the song, he says, "Don't believe a word they say," too.
Oh, okay.
So there's a change in there between what he said at the beginning and what he said later on.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's a good catch, Neil. We should have you on the show.
We are. That's why he's here.
He says, "Look me in the eyes. Don't believe a word they say. For life is good. Life is glory, though we live one life only." And then later he says, "Look me in the eyes. Don't believe a word I say." And instead of saying life is good, it says life is hard. Life is lonely. We're here for one night only. So I think that's really fascinating. So if you look at verse 1, who's the they? Yeah. I'm assuming they is probably religious people who are focused so much on the afterlife, who say things like, nothing in this world matters, we're going to go to heaven anyway, or I don't know how familiar you are with different sects of Christianity, but there's one version of Christianity, which we both came out of, that says the world is going to get progressively more and more horrible, and God is going to zap us out, and just hunker down until God zaps us out, and then the poor bastards who didn't believe the right things will suffer for whatever.
Yeah.
We don't believe that, but it seems to me like, what was the guy? Nietzsche. Nietzsche said that Christianity was actually nihilistic because of its focus on the afterlife, which I thought was a brilliant kind of twisting of the table. Because he's saying, you guys are saying that life here doesn't matter. It's a form of nihilism. You're saying everything here is empty and the only thing that matters is the afterlife. That's a form of nihilism. That's a good argument.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
That's why I don't deal with that. I don't talk about the afterlife a lot, because my belief is that Christianity is very this world oriented, and that there's a lot of things that we have to do in this world. And the afterlife stuff is like, yeah, I mean, when we get there, sure, but there's a lot of things that need to be done in this world. And so when it says, don't believe a word they say, life is good, life is glory, though we live. How did you interpret that? Who is the they there?
I'm sort of on the same boat as you, as they, as being the ones who are more thinking about towards the afterlife, and what you do here is going to be reflected on how your status is once you pass, and sort of thing. Is what you do here is going to be the end results of how well you do up there, kind of thing.
Right. Which, I mean, we don't believe that either. But there is kind of like, especially if you look at some Puritan literature. So like the post-mill Puritan guys were different, but there's some Puritan literature where it's like, this life is terrible, it's horrible. Of course, these guys, are dealing with, they were coming out of the Middle Ages and they were dealing with, horrible diseases and all this other stuff.
Right.
And so talking about how horrible and nasty life is made sense in that, and then looking forward to a better, existence made sense. But it created certain brands of Christianity that it kind of became obsessed with death, right? Because death is the only way you can get to heaven. And that's a form of nihilism, I think. But then when he says here, he says, look me in the face and don't believe a word I say. And then he talks about this life is hard. Why do you think he says, don't believe a word I say?
I think he's sort of leaving it up to the listener to make a decision themselves by sort of pointing out maybe the flaws that they say and maybe the flaws that he's saying. So I feel like he's sort of leaving it up to the listener to decide. Yeah,
I think that's what he was saying. He was saying, if I'm consider, that thing it says question everything, that shirt? It's like, well, should I question your questioning of everything?
Yes.
In which case I wouldn't question anything, because you told me to question everything.
Right.
But what he's saying is, don't believe them, but don't believe me either. Come up with your own philosophy of life. Right? And then another reason I think he said, don't believe what I say, when he says this life is hard and lonely and we're here for one night only, I think also what he's saying is, you don't have to take my word for it. Just observe and you'll see that this is true. Right? Like, life is hard, life is lonely. If you live long enough and pay attention, you'll see that what I'm saying is true. You don't have to believe anything I say.
Yeah, he's a lot of his lyrics also sort of reflect the hard, lonely life as well, like just based on how sort of overall depressing a lot of his lyrics are. So I feel like he's definitely more subscribed to that than the life is good, life is glory end of the spectrum.
Did you notice the chorus? He says, a moment of silence for the dead, but not one moment more. The dead are to be forgotten. We are here to be adored. I thought that was pretty crazy too, because he's saying like, well, at first it made it sound like don't have anything to do with the dead, just like leave that completely. But then over here, he's making it sound like, well, you a little bit. Have a moment of silence for them for a little bit, but don't let it take up your thing. Like adore the people around you, be adored by the people around you.
Yeah, that line is pretty crazy. We're here for one night only, because it's like a double, or maybe could even be a triple, because there's a lot of times when, you know how entertainers will say, we'll be here all week. And the other times they'll say, hey, we're here for one night only, and it's basically come to the show because we're going to.
It's like an urge to say, we're here for one night only. So let's make this night important kind of thing.
Right. So if you're talking about the brevity of life, It's like, look, life is just one big rock concert, and
Yeah.
it's only one night, so
Yeah.
you better mosh and have as much freaking fun as you can. Look, Ecclesiastes
Yeah.
says that, right?
Yeah.
It says, you know, like, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, because you're gonna your days under the sun are few.
Right.
What did Jonathan Edwards say in his resolutions? To live with all my might while I do live.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
was 16 when he wrote that.
That's crazy.
That's a good idea. What do you think about when you think about the brevity of life, Neil?
It gets a little, if I focus on it too much, it gets I feel like there might be a little bit of stress kind of pushing me in the back of my head. I try to not think about it too much, because I want to just think about progressing sort of in a moment to moment basis, where I'm worried about what's nearby. So I kind of think I'm thinking of ways to sort of ignore the brevity of life and just focus on just enjoying what I'm doing currently. I'm sort of a day-to-day person rather than a long-term goal person.
What about you? Do you think about the brevity of life?
Not usually. Sometimes I do. But sometimes I think about it with, you know, like other people that I care about, you know what I mean? Like, not so much myself. Like the frailty of, you know, you don't know what tomorrow holds, or, you know, and now it's like, you know, I had one kid that I was worrying about. Now I've got 4 kids, you know, because we've gotten married. So it's like 4 kids that you're like, what if something happened? Like, when you have one kid, you're like, okay, the chances are your one kid isn't going to get, you know, hurt, but now with there being 4, I'm like, the odds are greater now. So yeah, sometimes it does bother me, because like if it's just me that I'm worried about, well, if I'm dead, I'm not going to worry about me being dead. You know what I mean? Like, I'm dead, and I know I'm going to a better place, but like to lose a child. Whew. And then I think obviously being pregnant too, like that, it comes into my mind, like, but it's not something that I think about all the time. It's really just, it'll be like phases. What about, do you?
Well, yeah, I mean, we just had different experiences, and I've had some pretty unique experiences. So you kind of don't have a choice but to think about the brevity of life to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I feel like I've made peace with the concept of dying, but that was, you know, but it's happened a couple times where I'm like, this is, so it's like, so I don't know, you know, now I feel like I've got a lot more to lose, right? So like I wouldn't, like I think about Dorian, I'm like, he wouldn't be ready for me to not be on the planet.
Oh my gosh.
That would be a disaster. So I think you'd probably, you know, shed a tear here and there, and then get up and shoot another video.
You're so terrible. No.
I feel like it might be a bit more than just a few tears for you. And
Thank you, Neil.
We shall see. Okay. Brilliant song. Very brilliant song. Very unique subject matter as far as the way that he addressed it. Because it's kind of corny, right? Like this is funny. Like this song, like, ran the risk of possibly being corny, possibly, because he's saying a kind of hallmarky, you know, let your friends know, but the way that he brought it about wasn't preachy. And it wasn't like, I have arrived, so I hope you join me one day. But it was like, don't believe me either. It was kind of like, look, this is my observation of how things go. Yeah. Okay. I believe these things are true. I believe we should do this. Hey, look for it yourself and tell me what conclusion you come up to. And he's very confident that we're going to come to his conclusion. But he says, don't believe anything I say. I love that. I love the way that he did this, because this dude is probably like one of only 2 or 3 people that could have done this song like this and addressed this subject matter without being preachy, corny, or condescending. I think it's extremely difficult to do. And I think he pulled it off.
Yeah, it's a testament to his songwriting skills.
This guy's a badass. And he's kind of got some rap type of lyrical cadences too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like for example, like if you looked at civilized, the way that he rhymed civilized, it was rhymed like accented. Here, let me show you. Are you see right there?
Yeah.
Civilized and then still alive.
Oh, yep.
See,
Yeah.
that's kind of like that's our territory. That's how we ride. All right, what do you give the song, Neil?
I'm floating somewhere between a 9 and a 9.5.
What about you?
That's funny because I was gonna do a 9.3.
I was gonna do a 9.7. Well, all right. Give your score and why very briefly, sir.
So I'm going with like a 9.3. Probably sounds right to me. I given that because I really enjoy how it's how the song builds towards the chorus, towards like the part where it gets aggressive. I really enjoyed the layering of like the strings, and then the lyrics are I find he's a very poignant lyricist. Maybe not the most poetic, but what he says has a lot of weight to the meaning behind what he's saying. So that's why I kind of hold this song in a fairly high regard.
Okay. What about you?
Well, it's a 9.3 for me because I liked the sound. I liked the instruments. I liked his vocals. And I thought that some of the things that he was saying was important. Like, I think that we should, focus on the people that are alive around us and adore them and love them and whatever. I liked that.
Obviously don't agree that we're more real than any God was, blah, blah, blah. I believe God is ultimate reality and the generator of all of reality. So I don't agree with that. But I always say you always have to go into the other person's universe, right? So if I was in an empty universe, these are the songs that I'd write. And I think it's a pretty well thought out, well developed perspective. And like I said, it was a preachy point that did not come off as preachy and will really make you think. Like, for example, I love you. Thank you very much for carrying my child. Hey, Neil,
Aww.
I love you, my guy. Thanks for being in the channel so long. Couldn't have been 100,000 without you.
You're welcome. I love you guys too.
I'm serious. See, look at that circle of love and appreciation, all because of the big homie.
Yep.
So for that, it's a 10 for me because it actually can inspire you to do something. You don't have to agree with every single perspective. And granted, that was a pretty central perspective to be able to glean out something that's really important. And I think whatever your perspective is on how we came about or where we're going or whatever, I think all of us can agree that the people around us who've been in our life, who've contributed to making our spins around this earth an enjoyable one. Yeah, I believe the earth is a sphere.
Okay.
And that we went to the moon.
Okay.
I think it's important that we let those people know. And let people know that, hey, I think you're a pretty awesome person before they're dead. Because look, either we're right and he's up there with the A and Soph. He didn't give a damn what you have to say. Or this guy's right and you just go into, infinite black, in which case they still won't care. So why wait till they're dead? Let them know now.
Well, we wouldn't believe that he would be up with the ain't self. He's saying he didn't even believe in God.
Well, I don't know what was going on with him and God the moments before the car accident. Do you?
No.
I got a lot of optimism in.
Well, I know, but the way you said it.
Neil's offense. Well, yeah, I think he's with God. I think he's with the ain't self. I'm very optimistic. Like Neil. 2 minutes into it, Neil will be like, you know what? If Vin and Sori are right at all, I'd like to be where you are.
that side of the fence is looking pretty good right now. There's also I also don't mind the other side too much either. Like I said, I'll just hang out on the fence a little more.
I pictured a little cartoon like sliding off onto the one side.
Do you see what his shirt says?
No.
Tribulation. So you don't understand why that's so ironic. Remember I was telling you, like, people think that we're going to get zapped away and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Well, the period of history that happens after you get zapped away is called the tribulation.
Right.
So Enjoy.
Tribulation's also a good Swedish band.
Oh, is that
Swedish
what?
metal band. Yep.
Okay.
I figured it was some band.
Some band.
Some band.
Okay, that's it. That's it. Good job. 10. It's a 10. It's a 10. This is everybody should listen to this song. This is going to the library. I tell my kids, listen to this song. I think Dorian would.
I was literally just thinking about Dorian. I'm like, nah.
Dorian would immediately shut down. What did you say?
Yeah.
He was mad at Halloween.
Okay. Yep. That's what I was thinking.
All right. It's a 10. Woods of Ypres. Would you say 9.5?
No, 9.3.
You're wrong. And what about you, Neil?
I was also a 9.3.
You're also wrong.
Can we have our own opinions?
No.
Or
No. My opinions are law. What did it say? Don't believe. He's a man. What are you talking about?
You are still mansplaining. It doesn't matter if there's 15
This is a hate crime, what you're doing right now.
My word. Oh, my word.
Tell all your friends and your mom and your dad and your brother and sister and everybody that you love them, your coworkers.
Yep.
Tell your coworker something good that they do.
It's kind of a unique song to listen to on Neil's birthday, too.
I know.
What I'm saying?
I know. Shout out to Big Homie Neil.
When it's your birthday, it's like you're alive. Like you were born and you're still living, and there's all these exciting reasons for that, and it's just I don't know. So
well, this is a song about celebrating, so I may as well just celebrate my birth.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Hey! Well, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us Neil.
Yep.
All right. Vin out.
Sori out.
Neil out.
Gone.